Welcome to The Investor, a podcast where I, Joel Palafinkel, your host, dives deep into the minds of the world's most influential institutional investors. In each episode, we sit down with an investor to hear about their journeys and how global markets are driving capital allocation. So join us on this journey as we explore these insights. All right, super excited for the Investor Podcast episode this week. A good friend of mine, Ben Parr, who's the general partner at Theory Forge. He is an AI founder and investor. He's the president and co-founder also of Octane AI. It's a profitable AI platform that powers conversions for e-commerce brands. And, he started his career as co-editor and editor at large at Mashable, where he wrote over 2,400 articles and was a technology columnist for CNET. He is the author of the award-winning book Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention, which all of us could use, right? Because attention is the new currency. You could be horrible at whatever you do, but if people know about who you are, maybe you'll get some customers, right? So Parr sits on the board of directors for the Layla Jana Foundation. He is a member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 and an alum of Northwestern University. One thing is, look, I'm a huge fan of Layla Jana as well. Doing good by doing good. So we'll talk about that in a second. But Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on with me.
It's good to see you again. It's been a little while. We were just saying that before the show started.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to meet people virtually and then finally meet them in person. We actually met in person and we've hung out a bunch of times in person and hopefully do it again, but we're here virtual. But good to see you, man. I know there's been life updates that we talked about. So I want to talk about it all in the limited time that we have. But look, I mean, I hope I did an okay job with the professional bio, but would love to have you in your own words. Just take us back, man. Talk about your early days in high school. What did you think you wanted to do when you were a professional? Tell me about your family. What did your family do? What did your mom and dad do for a living? And, what was their influences on your career? And let's walk through all of that and then talk about the journey heading to where you are now. And then I might interrupt you periodically as well.
Well, the year was 1637 and I was born. No, I'm not immortal. I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. It's called Princeton, Illinois. I think there's 23 Princetons or something ridiculous like that in the country. And my dad and my grandfather were in insurance. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He started his insurance agency that my dad ran after he passed. And my mom was an OBGYN nurse for decades, which is very useful when you have a baby. I have a 6-month-old, as but the audience may not. Very helpful to have a mom who's so good with little babies. But high school, I was honestly the overachiever type. I was in band, saxophone. I was a drum major. I played football. I was council president, valedictorian. I know I'm just doing things. I was always the overachiever type. I did Scholastic Bowl. I just tried to but I was also trying to permeate across. It doesn't matter what clique or whatever. I just wanted to be everybody's friend and work with everybody. And so I got that sense in my high school. I feel it was not even 600 people total. And I think the big thing that drove my experience was I'm an Eagle Scout. I don't think it's unfortunate. It doesn't mean the same thing given what's happened in the last decade to the Boy Scouts. But I worked hard to, do everything and learn how to survive in the wilderness with nothing but some matches and an axe and some rations in the winter to learning how to give service and do service projects and lead teams. And I feel I've always been driven to do things for I always said this in college. I still say it now. It's I have the ability and thus the responsibility to change the world for the better in some way. And in the past, it's been build. With Mashable, it was build my network, report on what's happening. Speak about the truth. Build a company that would help people and would grow stuff. Invest in companies that are doing cool stuff. I just met up with one of my entrepreneurs for the first time in IRL called Exon Therapeutics. They're building AI models to create neurotherapeutics to treat and cure neurological disorders. I feel like the more I can write checks into companies like that, the more I can go and help the world. So anyway, that's like a long version of like, I did a bunch of shit in high school. I went to college in Chicago at the Big Purple School, Northwestern. I've always been a little bit of an overachiever. And I complement really well with my co-founder, Matt, my co-founder for both Octane and the fund, who my co-founder, him, did not go to college. He joined a company called Ustream instead of going to college. And that worked out really well as he led product there and helped him get acquired by IBM. And then I always like to say he went to the University of Y Combinator as he was part of YCS12, the legendary Coinbase Apiary Instacart class.
Well, the parallel that I'll say is, the book by Leila Jana was Give Work.
Mm-hmm.
And, VC is apprenticeship business. So there's a lot of jobs and a lot of careers where you just need to kind of learn how to do the job, and you could get in. You don't necessarily always need a 4-year degree. It helps. And, you never know who you're going to meet within the ecosystems that you become part of. But,
I wanted to explain. So for those who don't know, Leila was an extraordinary woman who I first met when Facebook had a FB Rev fund. They had a small venture fund that was run by Dave McClure before he started 500 Startups. That's how long ago it was. And Sama was the one nonprofit in there. The goal was to give work and to help create internet style jobs for people in Uganda, Kenya, and places like that. And she was an extraordinary woman. She passed way too early from cancer just before the pandemic. It was hard because I had to help write. It's a very weird thing because I was on the board of Sama during the transition to the Jana Foundation, and I had to help write her the announcement of her passing, which is a very weird feeling because you can't have emotion until you get the thing out, because there's hundreds of people who are depending on the way you talk about that and you announce that, and then you announce and you get through that, and then you break down. And she was an extraordinary woman, and her work continues both with Sama, which provides the AI data training for lots of top car manufacturers, lots of top people across, as well as the Leila Jana Foundation, trying to promote the idea of Give Work. And Give Work is a great book if you go pick it up on Amazon.
Yep.
And I have read that too.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, okay. So you're at Northwestern. Sorry to get you off track here, but let's get you back on track.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. It's having tangents, right? But okay, so you're at Northwestern. What was your major?
I had 2 majors and a minor. Science and human culture and political science are my 2 majors, and then a minor in business institutions. So my main major, science and human culture, was the study of how science has affected history, society, technology, economics, the broad range of human experience, which I feel was a perfect major for my main role afterwards, which was as the co-editor of Mashable. I've always had this lens of how does science and technology affect the world, affect the way we perceive things. And I bring that too when I think about AI and I write about AI. I have a newsletter, benparr.com, where I write about, where I call it the AI analyst, where I dive into the impacts of AI and how we as a society think about this new technology and how it's impacting us.
So how was it, so then, after, I guess, walk me through college and kind of did you do some internships, and what did you think you were going to do out of college? Did you just kind of decipher that you wanted to be an editor?
Well, no, God, no. I never, even when I was an editor, didn't think I was going to be an editor. I thought in the original I was going to be an astronomer, and I was going to be a physicist. I started in physics, and physics is great, but I realized I didn't want to be on the research end of science as much as the management end. I wanted to be able to make decisions. I'd still love to do more of the scientific research side in some cases. I also admit I'm decent at math, but the kind of math you have to do for physics is a whole nother level. So I said science and culture. I was I thought then I'd go into politics. My first internship after my freshman year was for Congress. I worked for my home district congressman, Congressman Jerry Weller. where I also realized, among like learning tons about politics, I didn't want to be a politician or work in government straight off the bat, because I saw how often, not just my congressman, but all Congress people like would have to leave the Capitol building to go to the nearby congressional offices to do fundraising phone calls, because you can't do them in the halls of Congress. And just how much time was spent on fundraising, which I was like, I'd rather be able to have my own money to, if I ever got into politics or ever ran for office, so that I didn't have to spend all my time just fundraising. I could actually, like, not quote unquote be bought. And that kind of led, on the flip side, to like my entrepreneurship, which was sparked by my two mentors. My mentor, Troy Heinekoff, who ran Techstar Chicago, and runs a venture fund, which my other mentor, Mark Ackler, he's taught an entrepreneurship class for only juniors and seniors. And I convinced him that I, as a sophomore, should take that class. And I did that by reading front to back Accounting for Dummies and learning all of accounting as quickly as I could. And he allowed me in as a result. And that sparked my curiosity for entrepreneurship. Like, I was always, I feel like, entrepreneurial as like even a little kid. Like, my first hustle was selling origami for a quarter in second grade to my classmates. My mom taught me how, but it was definitely that class that like sparked like, oh, this is how you build a business. This is how you make a financial model. This is how you ideate all these different pieces, and got me towards a path of, going to Silicon Valley, Mashable being the thing that opened the door to the rest of Silicon Valley for me.
Sure. That's great. And then talk to me about Mashable. I guess, did you spend a lot of time with Pete Cashmore?
When I first joined Mashable, it was all remote, and it was mostly all remote for my time there. So Pete was in Scotland. He had been in San Francisco, but I was the only person in the Valley. Like, I joined Mashable as a part-time writer.
Sure.
After college, I was like, I had another job in web health that I didn't really love. And I was writing on the side for Mashable. My articles did well. And I just decided like I had to move to the Valley to pursue the tech dream and like be a part of the conversation. I didn't have a real plan. So I quit my job, and I told Mashable that I was going to leave and look for a startup job. And they said, hey, do you want to work for us instead? We'll give you shit pay, but you'll be able to do X and Y. And I'm like, yeah, let's go and do that. So I did, moved across the country. And because I was the only Mashable person there, I built up a lot of, I was the person sent to do every major event. So like Facebook, my first time was Facebook was launching the new office. So I was there talking with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, or Google had an announcement. Like, I'd be there for like the launch of like Google Plus or the new Android phones or all these other events.
Sure. So you're covering a lot of those events pretty much.
Yes, which for someone 24, 25 is a dream.
Oh, yeah. It's a dream job.
You build relationships, you get to know the reporters, you get to know VCs, you're invited to dinners. It was an extraordinary opportunity. And I wrote a lot of articles in my time at Mashable, and I'm very thankful for that. And, eventually I got to hang out a little bit more with Pete and friends as like they consolidated. We opened a New York office, we opened an SF office, we like scaled the team, we hired more people. I got promoted several times eventually to co-editor and editor at large. It was an experience, an amazing one. So how do you think AI is going to impact the editorial industry, right? I mean, curve there.
So look, I mean, I have a little bit of a shared experience, just very, very minor, but I mean, I worked in product management, and I used to work at Hearst magazines, right? So I was at a big publisher. So, there was always a whole difference between church and state, right? So you don't want to make sure the editorial voice isn't muddied up with like ads, right? And just kind of like an advertorial. But obviously there was no AI and, platforms that could kind of come up with the content. I mean, people were still manually writing that, right? There's no, so you still have to kind of think about SEO and think about that. But I just feel that, look, there's detection technologies that can, and I'm sure Google is on top of this. They obviously can detect if blog posts and content is AI written, I'm assuming. And they'd probably, give priority to more organic content, but you're the expert here. So would love to hear your opinion on like, where editorial is going to go.
So I think I wrote something about this early on benparr.com. I have to remember, but like it almost doesn't even matter whether it's AI or not. There's this like content was already getting easier to create, and so there was AI already being built to report on little league games and things like that, and that does not require a lot of thinking. This is just plug in the numbers so that people are informed.
Sure.
That kind of journalism is being automated, and it is definitely taking some jobs. But the ones that are really thriving have been able to build their own audiences, their own brands. They're breaking stories. So, I think about like some of my friends like Alex Conrad and Alex Kantrowitz, like, and they built their own new publications. They left like BuzzFeed and Forbes and things like that. And they're breaking stories. And that's not something that AI can really do, because that requires people work, investigative work, sourcing, talking over coffees, getting people drunk, all that sort of thing. And that kind of reporting is actually probably even more important and even more difficult to do. The writing part's the easy part in some ways of journalism. It's the actual sourcing of the core story and what's the narrative and what's the behind the scenes going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a section. And then the other one is, I thought that's always been good, is like the right kind of opinion, because AI is not great at coming up with like a new opinion on the world, just because it's based off of, especially LMs are based off what happened in the past. That's literally how it's trained. It's not based off of like, what is the future in the same way. And so I think that some like great opinion writers and are in good shape. And like Kara Swisher is an example of someone who like people value her opinion, has built an audience, has built a career. And I've known her for forever. She always hates it when I try to hug her because she's not a hugger. But it's the kind of thing that if you are building your own audience and brand, I've told this to like journalists at like Northwestern, at the Medill School, that's what you got to go and do. But it's obviously a fact, like there's less jobs than there were before. And it's just true, not just of journalism, it's true across the spectrum, and certain jobs are being affected more, like standard copy jobs, standard like image generation jobs. Those were first. More is coming. There's a huge adjustment period happening. New jobs are obviously being created, but I don't think in the same rate. That's a whole different societal question of what do we do. But the technology is already here. It is progressing. And I tend to think of this stuff as we have to figure out how we adapt to the technology. You can't really say like we're going to stop the technology. That just doesn't work, because you can say that in one region, maybe even one country, but others are going to keep going. And so you have to figure out, how do we reinvent society around this new technology?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, a lot of that is going to evolve, but there's also going to be anti-AI software that hopefully should evolve to kind of help delineate, the difference, or, when you see an ad.
Yes. And it exists, but it's often riddled, just like, detects things that are not actually wrong and errors. I think it's less like, I've talked to a lot of teachers who have adapted, more like handwriting of essays in class, more of leveraging, I know some teachers who are like using AI to create information, like write essays about certain people, and then the job of the student is to figure out where the errors are. And like the AI is the one who came up with the errors, so like the AI is not going to help you find the errors.
Sure.
I find that there's, again, this is like the adaptation of things. And yes, anti-AI, I'm not going to call it anti-AI software. It's like, it's security software, it's plagiarism software, just more advanced. But that's a different kind of race that's also very hard to go and do. But we as a society find ways to constantly adapt. We've adapted to the Industrial Revolution, to the creation, to the farming, to all these other things where there's lots of pros and some cons, and we figure out how to adapt to it. And society over the long arc of the world tends to get better, even if we have bumps along the way and issues along the way, which we always do.
I totally agree. And I think AI and some of these tools are going to eventually almost be as commonplace as just using Excel, right? It's just kind of a typical office tool that you use. It may be integrated in with a lot of your products too. And it just may also be a normal form factor, right? I mean, you're going to just get used to having a prompt to do things instead of a search box. So I think over time, it'll just, would you agree? That it just will
It's
kind of be part
already
of the
starting to
user.
happen.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
look, like how many? I think it's a vast majority of college students are using ChatGPT like once a week or like some
Yeah,
ridiculous amount.
sure.
And then they're gonna be using it when they go into the office. And I think even
Yeah.
now, like if I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know it's a
Mhm.
very large amount, and the daily usage is just continually increasing.
Yeah. Switching to development, obviously a lot of us have been playing with Lovable and Replit, and I've had a lot of fun with my son building just like these fun little shooter games. You could build them on Lovable, and if I want an update or if I want to move a button, literally I just ask the agent, and it'll just respond and move the button in real time, right? So I don't have to kind of ask a developer to make that update. I'm assuming for more complex technologies, you still need, like a back end team, a front end team. And if with this much more elegant infrastructure, I'm assuming, the vibe coding stuff is
Well,
not there
yeah,
yet.
no, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can vibe code a lot of stuff. Like my co-founder, if I don't know if you follow him, you should. Everyone should. X.com/MattPRD. He's
Mm-hmm.
in that like my top 0.1% of vibe coders on the planet. Like
Yeah,
he's been doing this since the very first like private beta for OpenAI. Like he was
sure.
building stuff before chat, like with GPT-3 before before there was a chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
And he built an entire like AI system to audit the World Scientific Research papers that's like backed by Reid Hoffman and a bunch of other billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
He's built an entire social network for teaching people how to vibe code with Cursor. So you could build a lot of stuff. Now,
Yeah.
I don't think of it as either or. Like the Octane AI team, there's, the entire engineering team uses Claude Code to help write code, and that is a part in partial vibe coding. It helps with a lot of stuff. With like
Mm-hmm.
the output of the Octane AI engineering team is well more than double. I think it's 2.5x. I think I got the numbers from our CTO recently. It's significantly increased. We've been able to create like new features rapid fire
Mm-hmm.
in a way that we weren't able to go and do before. And it's not like a vibe code or not. It's like a part of the system. Obviously, there's certain things that you have to edit or change or that you can't do purely with Claude Code or whichever system you're using, but it makes you so much more efficient. And so it's a part of almost, I think every smart engineering team. That's why OpenAI has been able to ship so fast. They have
Yeah.
Codex, and they're all using Codex internally to build these features rapid fire. And you saw that with like OpenAI Dev Day, which as of this recording is a little over a week ago.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a part of everything. You can't build everything with it, but I think of it more like it's already an integrated part of like the Octane AI team's development structure. And I think every single one of our portfolio companies is using Cloud Code or something like it to build their products too.
So before we get to the Octane AI part of the story, so look, you're working at Mashable, you're, very senior, got promoted multiple times, got invited into rooms that a lot of us would dream about. I think you had a stint at CNET as well.
I
Was
had
that
a
the?
I had a column for CNET. I worked
Mm-hmm.
for Jim Lanzone, who now runs Yahoo,
Mm-hmm.
writing a column on the future of technology, which
Yeah.
was awesome, and going on CBS every once in a while as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And then was that the final role in kind of like the editorial space before you transitioned
Well,
from?
there was the column, and then during that time, I wrote my book, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Captivology, on the science and psychology of attention, and that book came out in 2015. And after I interviewed like for this book, I went through the science and psychology of attention. In fact, I think I have it here. The science and psychology of attention and why we pay attention to certain people and products and how to utilize that science to captivate others. So yeah, for those who
I
can't
love
see,
that.
is the HarperCollins put my face on the book. It was not my decision. I was not opposed to it. They actually used Kara Swisher's photographer. I spent 5 hours with this person to get this one photo. They had me hang up on monkey bars and stuff.
I love it. It looks great. I just posted the link here, so hopefully the community can check it out. Did you have you also done the Audible for it too?
I had a amazing guy do the Audible. I kind of wish I had done the Audible,
Yeah,
but it was so
it's a
running
lot of
around.
time.
It is. When I do my next book, I will definitely do that. I have ideas for the next book. I'm in back and
Mm-hmm.
forth convos on that, so
Yeah,
stay tuned on that one.
that's amazing. Yeah, well, hey, thanks for Thanks for sharing that. And, I just shared that with the community as well. And then, my next question is, because I know that you've written, a bunch of code as well. You kind of transitioned to writing code. What was the pivot point from writing thousands and thousands of lines of editorial content to now thousands of lines of code?
Well, so just to give like the timeline here, I wrote the book, interviewed the world's greatest PhDs in attention and memory, interviewed amazing people like Sheryl Sandberg, Steven Soderbergh, David Copperfield, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario, toured the country, did a lot of speaking all across the world, and got to meet a lot of CMOs and others. And my co-founder, Matt, and I started to realize that, like, this is 2016 when we started our company, Octane, which we still own and run, that marketing was moving away from this like one-to-many email blast towards like conversation. Matt, my co-founder, had traveled to China with his now wife, then fiance, and saw like how many people, like how much all of commerce was happening over WeChat. And we realized like chat was going to be the way that you had conversations with people, with brands, not just people, and that AI was required to facilitate those things. And that was kind of like part of the inspiration of the first version of Octane AI, which powered, before it was an e-commerce, the AI platform for e-commerce, it powered the chatbots for the world's biggest celebrities. And for brands like L'Oreal, we powered the chatbots for Rick Ross, Jason Derulo, Kiss, Aerosmith. I can tell you, Lindsay Lohan. I can tell you a lot of stories about all of these like celebrities and working with them. We had tons of users. We raised money from General Catalyst, all that sort of thing. And like we started like building out this company. So like I don't think it was like a transition. It's more like, the skill set from being a reporter works really well for, I think, both being a founder and being an investor. Being a founder being like the ability to sell yourself, to fundraise, to tell the narrative. I think the narrative storytelling that you have to do as a founder is widely underestimated, because the best founders are able to tell a narrative, not just to the press, but to investors, to prospective hires, to their team. And the ones who are best at that, communicating that, end up, I think, building bigger companies. And it's not an inherent skill set for a lot of founders. It's one of the reasons, frankly, like founders come to Matt and me and have us on their cap tables in those oversubscribed rounds, because we have this like deep experience in media and storytelling that others simply don't have.
Sure.
So like, I know that's a long way around, but that transition was just like, it felt natural to me. I have like, when you look at my resume, like this is a crazy career of media and like book writing, and like then the next thing is build an AI company, like 7 years before ChatGPT is a thing. But in my brain, it all kind of flows together. It's like kind of the same like through line of storytelling and communication, and communicating what the future is, whether as a reporter or as an entrepreneur or as an investor.
No, I totally agree. I think being able to communicate the messaging clearly and helping people understand what problem you're solving as an investor or as a founder, and then also just dealing with difficult situations, right? Handling those things. Most people deal with the biggest reason, I would say, in my opinion, that people have conflict is because there's just bad communication, right? What was said was not heard. Like somebody said something and somebody heard something else, right? So I feel like that's a huge cause for sometimes just miscommunication or conflict. And that can happen in any room, right? Whether it's investors and LPs, founders and investors, and then just, founders trying to communicate what they do to the world, right? And you only have like 120 characters to do it, or like
or literally an elevator pitch. I literally had one entrepreneur in the floor, and I'm like, this is a real life elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Go. Which, you sometimes I gotta do under pressure, like literal elevator pitch. I was like, my first literal elevator pitch. Good. Check off the list as an investor.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of like the Octane AI a little bit. Would love to hear a little more about the origin story of that. So kind of, yeah.
So like I said before, we realized that chat was going to be the interface that brands and humans communicated, and we're trying to be on the bleeding edge of it. the first version of our software was built on top of the Facebook platform, Facebook Messenger, which one, great distribution, but two, Facebook changes the rules way too often that it's hard to build on top of their platform. And they know it and I know it. We moved towards Shopify though, where we had a couple of customers who were using our software to create guided shopping experiences. And these were like big brands in the Shopify ecosystem. And that worked out. Like, we realized that we should double down on Shopify in 2018 and 2017.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a very good decision, or 2018, 2019, a very good decision in retrospect. And that was a Matt Vision thing where we caught the e-commerce wave. We realized like where Shopify was going. We realized where e-commerce was going. I don't think we all knew what would happen after COVID, but we've built what is the like conversion AI platform for e-commerce. We're best known for our quizzes, being able to do guided shopping experiences. Think like Find My Skincare Routine, Find My Fit. These big brands like Jones Road Beauty and Thrive Cosmetics and Laura Geller and like Harney and T Sons, and we have like brands across like every spectrum. Beauty being our biggest vertical, that use our software to connect more with their customers and learn more about them, and use that to personalize the shopping experience, from the emails they get to the text messages to the copy on the website. We just announced like we have over 5,000 customers using our software. We've been profitable for years now, and we've raised money from General Catalyst, Javelin, Bullpen, Boost VC, our first investor, M Ventures, Top Angels. We've been through the gambit. Octane AI should be dead. It's been like less than 2 weeks from death multiple times. I think that's honestly something that appeals to the entrepreneurs who, like, when we chat with them, like, we've been through the hell and back in the trenches. Yeah. We know how to fundraise. We know what kinds of things these founders should be doing and saying in these like rooms with seed, Series A, Series B investors. We know who they are. We've built relationships by fundraising from them. We know how to build sales and marketing teams because we've done it. We know how to enhance the operations of a team and how to recruit because we've done it. We can provide, we can provide this really practical, tactical advice to our founders in a way that is really hard for investors who have not gone through the hell of building a company. Especially for us, we build an AI company. We can talk on a very deep product level. Matt can go back and forth with a founder on the intricacies of the OpenAI API or on vibe coding or on all sorts of subjects.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, what you're saying really resonates to me because people observe how you react when obviously times are good, but then when things are, going to shit, how do you handle it, right? Are you able to kind of maintain your composure and figure a way out of it? Or are you going to go down a downward spiral, right? And I think, some of those things just build character and it helps you be less anxious the next time it happens, right? And you have those, life gives you challenges, but you have the tools to figure them out, right? And I think if you can handle them in the right way, that's a good indicator of being a good founder and also a good investor as well.
It's both anxiety, but also lessons. So like, you figure like, this is like part of why we've been able to increase like the bank account, because we know what kind of things can happen.
Yep.
Or we really understand how we understand the idea of like overhiring. Like it's especially in the like 2021 kind of era of everything was going up and the right. Everyone overhired. You just don't need as many people as you think you do. And AI has obviously changed it. So like you could be really lean as an AI company. And we really advocate for that with our portfolio companies until you found really deep product market fit. Stay really lean. Minimize like how much overhead you have so that you can find that real product market fit. And when you really find it, like, and most of the time you think you found it, but you haven't. When you really find it where like demand is just coming at you in a way you can't handle, that's when you start to go and scale. That's when it makes the most sense. That's when you raise the bigger dollars, because otherwise, like I've just seen it time and time again, companies like Series A, like they raise a bunch of money and then they go out of business a couple years later. Someone raises like a large seed amount, they end up spending too much money on hires. when they needed to use that money to really nail product market fit before, scaling up their sales team or their marketing engine or some pieces like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then, the final chapter, which I think is exciting to talk about, is just kind of, building your career as an investor. And one thing that I really appreciate is like bigger conglomerates, bigger entities that now have like a strategic investment arm. And, sometimes it could be a completely separate platform, a separate entity. But, I went to an event, I think a couple months ago. It was like a large whiskey spirits conglomerate that was from Japan, right? And then that conglomerate talked about their corporate venture arm, right? And it makes sense, right? Because you want to be able to invest in technology that is going to, number one, complement your business and give you more market share, but also probably innovate out some of your other competitors as well. So there's a lot of reasons for people to have operating companies, and then also for people to also build an investment firm around the side of that. But we'd love to hear kind of the impetus for you kind of building. We already talked about why I think you did, but we'd love to hear kind of this additional career move for you.
Matt and I started our fund last year, and what happened was, honestly, like a bunch of VCs after the ChatGPT came out and AI came out, like asked us for help on AI deals because we were seeing these deals very early. We've had long relationships. We're known entities in AI, and like CRV asked to scout. Blitzscaling asked us to be advisors. Some big firms wanted us to help them with due diligence. And my co-founder and I are a little bit of pirates. We're like, why would we just scout? Why don't we just start a fund? And it's something, honestly, Matt and I have wanted to do for a long time. And so we reached out, to some of our good friends across the valley, top GPs at major firms, top founders, and a shocking number of people said yes. And that kind of started the spark for our fund, which, is a little over $10 million pre-seed and seed, AI founders backing AI founders. I think one thing we've learned from this process is that the top AI founders, what they really want to have on their cap tables is other AI founders who really understand like how to build these things and what to build and how to gain attention. And those are things that I think Matt and I are especially skilled at. And we have backed, since we started our venture fund, 20 companies. So we're going for 35 to 40 out of this fund, a little wider spread when you're doing pre-seed and seed. But already nearly half of them are marked up, several raised Series A. We were early to Gumloop, which has been on fire and powers like the AI automation for all of Shopify, all of Instacart. Wordware, which we invested in before they started Y Combinator and ended up raising $30 million during YC from Spark and Felicis during YC. There's a couple of the crazy companies. We just find these founders who that are tinkerers, who are really understand their customer, who are obsessive about something, who we think have a really strong strength in go to market. Because we can help a founder with the press side and how to build a marketing team and those pieces, but you have to have the raw materials there. Someone who you could put in front of the camera, someone who can sell, someone who has a vision. Those two pieces coming together, I feel like we've seen really great results when we've had that. And so it's been really great for Matt and me to have the ability to back these amazing founders and to write 200 to 500K checks into their businesses. For us, the earlier the better. But we've also, joined some amazing rounds. We're investors in Sunflower, which is, the early Facebook designer Bobby Good Latte's company. But also on the flip side, we were the first check into Payman, which is the AI infrastructure for AIs to pay other AIs and AIs to pay humans. And Matt was the one who hunted that one down. Saw we had a firm belief that AI would need infrastructure to pay other AIs, and that eventually that instead of humans paying AIs to work for them, AIs humans to work for the AIs. And they end up raising, they raised 10 million from Freestyle and Coinbase Ventures. They went through HF0. They're doing amazing stuff. I don't know. I'm really proud. It's great. We had, in fact, last week during SF Tech Week, had the first like Theory Forge founder dinner. So we brought of our founders, as many of the founders we could together, and a couple of our LPs for dinner, and it was just really great. For some of them I hadn't even met in person yet, but it was really great to just like hear their stories and have them meet each other and have them help each other. Because I think also it's not just like VC helping the founders. You can build an ecosystem where the founders help other founders.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of firms I can mention that do that too. And I really like those firms where like you just want to have a founder community that can help you because it's really hard to know what the fuck you should do and how to not screw it up. Because very few people have gone through that journey of being a founder or actively in that journey and have raised money from top VCs and tried to figure out how to find product market fit and figure out how to go and hire or how to fire. All things you have to do really rapidly when you are a founder, especially when you're building a rocket ship company.
Yeah, totally agree. I just want to switch gears real quick and just talk about a few things high level. So I want to know your reaction to just the macro trends of venture, with now seeing Goldman Sachs, acquiring Industry Ventures, right, for almost $1 billion. So I guess what was kind of your reaction to that?
It feels like consolidation has been almost inevitable in venture.
Yeah.
So like, look, one, venture isn't built in the same kind of way to quote unquote acquire. Like it's easier to acquire a company where like you acquire the shares, acquire the shares. Yeah, it's not as common a practice in venture because it's not designed in the same kind of way. You can work pretty well independently, but we're starting to see a little bit more of this acquisition. General Catalyst is doing that, did this too recently.
Yeah, they had a roll-up strategy as well.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely been historically too many funds, and historically it's made sense. I think actually it makes sense what Goldman's doing. I think that you'll probably see a few more of these, especially for funds where they're like, there's a really talented partner or two they really want to bring on board. I can see where acquiring a fund, maybe they make them like they're like leading their seed practice. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah, it's almost like a finance acquihire, right? Because they're bringing in 45. Yes. They're bringing in 45 employees, right?
Right. It's both that. It's also, obviously they value the assets of what industry's invested in, which is both like, on the direct side and the fund side.
And then there's a revenue from the management fee and carry as well.
This is true. And then there's also that piece, and it can make sense, I think, for a GP. Like Bootstrap Labs was also acquired, I feel like a year ago or so.
Yeah.
So it's happening more often. It is a trend I think you're going to see more. I don't know, like it's going to happen more. I expect the consolidation to happen more. It makes sense. The biggest factor, of course, is how many more people, how many more partners do you want to have at a firm? But the flip side is you acquire the right people, the right firm, you can accelerate your work and your vision. And some, I think, incredible GPs, you're going to only be able to recruit if you acquire their firms. And I think you're going to see that happen with some of the more traditional venture capital funds over the next few years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we got a couple minutes left, Ben. Super grateful for all your time. I usually like to leave every podcast episode with just maybe one piece of advice. It could be from a mentor. We're both fans of Mark Ackler. Mark Ackler's been a mentor to both of us, but it could be anybody. It could be a relative. It could be one of your co-founders. It could be a friend. It could be your life partner. But just one piece of advice you got for us.
I think I hear Adam Draper's "Be the Cockroach" in the back of my head, but my version of it is just don't die. Like, if we had given up on Octane AI, and there was like a time where we should have been dead after Facebook, Cambridge Analytica decimated the Facebook platform, and we couldn't launch our Shopify app, we should have died. We found a way to not die. We found a way to get, our investors believed in us, backed us when we were in our darkest corner. If we had not done that, we hadn't gotten to, the AI boom, I wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't have a fund. We wouldn't have an AI company with team members in 14 countries. We wouldn't have 5,000 customers. You can't do that if you give up or you die. Now, that doesn't to say just keep working on the same idea when it's not working. You have to really be thoughtful, pivot, constantly look for product market fit. But if you are tenacious enough, you can find your moment, and you keep your burn low, you can find your moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes, a part of startups is luck and timing just as much as tenacity. And
Yeah.
so sometimes you might be a little bit early, stay alive so they can get your timing. Be tenacious. They have 1,000 other pieces of advice, but that one always comes to mind because Matt and I refused to let Octane AI die. And now it's bigger than ever. And we get to do this amazing job where we get to back amazing founders and spend time learning from them just as much as we teach them the things that we've learned.
Yeah.
And I feel really grateful to be able to sit in both roles. And I hope that Matt and I are allowed to invest in great companies for the rest of our lives. And our goal is to build a fund that is here for the next 100 years, however long I'm alive. Plus, then build an institution that we can pass on, something like that lives beyond us, that is helping entrepreneurs, that is helping the world.
Yeah.
That would be amazing, and we're working towards that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, I agree. I mean, I think even in your darkest times, having that positive mentality and just trying to have hope and trying to figure it out somehow. And to your point, be flexible. And you might have to kind of go a path that is much more painful. But in the end, you still survive. Right. And I think literally not dying too. Right. So don't impact your health as well. So you got to take, if you're healthy, you can do anything. If you lose your health, you can't do anything else. Yeah.
Working out matters. Mental state matters. Having the right team matters. Octane AI is like blessed to have an incredible team that we've curated over the years. A lot of team members have worked there for 4+ years. We've promoted from within. I trust, our team, to execute on marketing, on product, on engineering, on partnerships, on these things. Like, I don't have to go and check in every couple minutes. And obviously, like certain things, especially the product vision, and is like driven by us, and certain things can only be done by a founder. But in the end, like, part of this job too, both in VC and in startups, is if you like curate and you hire the right team and you are a great recruiter, you can do really well in almost any job. And I think the ability to storytell and to recruit as a result of that is an undervalued asset as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, hey, Ben, thank you so much. I'm so happy that we got to catch up, and we're probably going to be doing some events in the next month or so. So I'll keep you in the loop, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
Hopefully see some of you out there at one of those events. I wear usually a big Panama hat for those things, so I'm very easy to find whenever I am out in the wild.
I love it. Well, hey, have a great rest of the week, and goodbye to everybody else.
See ya.
All right. Take care.